Hello and welcome to the Perth Gaming Crew show. It is actually May the 4th, so today we are going to have to talk about a much beloved franchise. It's all about Spock, it's all about the phasers, it's all about the Enterprise. No, sorry. It's all about Star Wars today. So welcome fans and beyond for the people of Perth. Johnny, how are you doing? Good to have you on the show.
Hello there, Jono. Good to be here for the May the 4th special. Also great to have Pat back for a banger of an episode we've got coming.
Thanks so much, John. I just want to say, JT, that you probably just got us cancelled with that introduction.
I know. I was like, it's all the same, isn't it? Spock's in that episode. No, hang on a minute. So, I mean, I have to admit to the people of Perth and beyond, the lads here are the true Star Wars fans. I'm a 7 out of 10 Star Wars fan, but I have played a lot of games, so we're all about the Star Wars games over the years today. Before we do go on, I think Johnny did want to give a shout out. We've got something up and running on social media, Johnny. Is that right?
Wanted to let the viewers from Perth and beyond that PGC is now on social media. We've taken our first tentative steps into the world of social media, and you can follow Perth Gaming Crew on Instagram, Perth Gaming Crew at Instagram. If you want to keep in touch and see what kind of between episodes, see what content's coming up and some of the past content we're spotlighting. So yeah, you can stay in touch and stay up to date there.
Awesome. Thanks, Johnny. And of course, if you like what we do, hit the like button, subscribe. It does help us out with the podcast. And you can check out our website at perthgamingcrew.com. Flick us a message if you're interested in joining, because we are keen to have guests. But let's start where it all began, literally in the gaming zone. It may be the very first Star Wars game. I'm not sure. We're going to throw to Pat to talk a bit about his Famicom days, to tell people of Perth and beyond, what is this gem here?
What is this gem?
And is this Han Solo? What's going on?
Yeah, okay. So I was actually thinking that to myself whether or not this was the first Star Wars game, but I don't know if it is. I'm sure Atari has one of those like space ones where you just shoot around and stuff. But for me personally, this was the first Star Wars anything that I was introduced to, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. So this game is theoretically A New Hope, I believe. It starts out so promising, because if you boot this game up on the old Famicom, the cartridge, it starts out with the proper Star Wars theme, so they somehow licensed that. It's
got Crystal Collection, just like in the Star Wars movies. And
you remember that little bird?
I remember that. Yeah,
exactly. Fighting the little things. I don't even know what they are, but as you can see, it's in Japanese. So this game is actually this game was never released, I think, for the Western countries, and it was just in Japan and around Asia. So it'll be hard pressed to get a copy of this in the Western world, I think. But as you can see, standard platformer. It's all in Japanese writing. It's kind of true to the story. I don't know why Luke has black hair, because in the cutscenes beforehand, when Leia was getting chased and he got his message from R2-D2, he has blonde hair.
Yeah.
And then, the game starts out, you've already got a lightsaber. It's great. Like, I remember that happening in the movies, and also
I don't remember Darth Vader turning into a scorpion back then.
I was going to say,
being like an early boss fight on Tatooine. It's like, hang on a minute, I don't think that's what happened in the movies.
Exactly.
Someone didn't have the actual Star Wars license when they made this, did they?
Yeah, but no, I remember this game being very fun. I think it is just called Star Wars: A New Hope for those that are curious, the English name. But it's classic platformer, as you can see there. Collect stuff, use your lightsaber to beat stuff up, just scroll from left to right. There's sections of the game specifically after this one where you are on the Millennium Falcon and you're shooting down TIE fighters, I guess.
Cool.
And then you get sent to some Egypt kind of land for the second stage with pharaohs and things like that.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. And then in that and you fight Darth Vader again, I guess, and then this time he turns into a
Ah,
pterodactyl.
wait,
Like,
the Scorpion would have
yeah,
been more appropriate for that level.
yeah,
Someone has got their
exactly.
wires crossed.
So it's wacky, it's wild, but it is good fun.
Hmm.
There is an area in this game that I absolutely stumped me and my dad as a kid, which is where you're in the Death Star and you just got to figure out how to turn the force fields off. Otherwise, you just keep dying, and you really can't do that if all the writing is in Japanese because you just don't know where to go. So, but
You really
otherwise,
got to think that this is probably one of those games where they had a sort of platformer developed, and then they probably got the Star Wars license, and then quickly let's see what kind of Star Wars skin we can whack on top of all the assets.
exactly. They forgot to change Luke's hair color as well because remember when his hair was black.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of funny how they did that. Yeah.
yeah, but it was my introduction to Star Wars, and what an introduction it was.
Cool. That is so cool. Yeah, like, because most people start with the movies, so like to start with this is probably like, oh, this is
Yeah.
awesome. Can't wait to see this stuff in the movies and go to Egypt or whatever. But yeah, far out. The very first NES classic, probably worth $1,000 if you can try and get a cartridge today, let alone an original Famicom, I would say.
Hey.
So, yeah, so that's Star Wars for the Famicom, specifically for the Famicom,
For the
not for
Famicom,
the
yeah.
NES. The NES version is quite different. All right, Johnny, I'm going to throw to you. You had quite an interesting one too. One that I'd only heard of but not really seen much of, and it's probably not one of the biggest Star Wars games. It's in the RTS genre, which is also kind of unique. So can you tell us a little bit about Empire at War, I believe it's called?
Yeah, so most of my Star Wars gaming has been done on PC, and this is one from 2006. So it's real time strategy game, and like a lot of there's quite a decent subgenre of Star Wars themed RTSs around that period, sort of from like late 90s into the mid 2000s. And this one was a lot of fun. I sunk a lot of hours into this in the sort of mid 2000s, it's really addictive gameplay where you choose a faction, either the Rebels or the Empire. It's effectively serves as a prequel to Star Wars: A New Hope, depending on which faction, and in case of both factions.
Whoa!
Whoa.
Yeah, it's all sorts of, and it's quite satisfying because you both the space battle aspects and the land battle aspects are quite well developed, whereas there were previous RTSs in the Star Wars RTS subgenre where you had pretty decent sort of space battles, pretty well developed, but then you didn't really have much in terms of the land battles and that kind of thing. And the action is quite hectic, and it's incredibly satisfying if you're playing as the rebels, to send a squadron of your Y-wing bombers to take out like a Star Destroyer to blow up different element. You can target the lasers, or you can target the shield generators, and it's very addictive to like sort of micromanage your fleets or your armies on the ground. If you're playing as the Empire, taking Darth Vader with a platoon of stormtroopers to rampage through a rebel base with your AT walkers, and your the artillery walkers. I forget the names now, but there were so
the
much.
AT-ATs, or were they a different one? Or
There's the AT-ATs and the AT-STs, or the two-legged ones. Sending them through like a rebel base, so I can depending on the planetary system you're engaged in a particular campaign on a sort of kind of essentially a 2D galactic map. Each planet has a kind of different kind of environmental elements that you have to sort of navigate, and different layouts of bases. So something I really enjoyed about this, and I do have the original physical copy for the PC back in the day.
Yeah,
Look at
PC.
that. That's
Nice.
a
Remember
relic.
those days.
And it was a time when they were still doing manuals, and
Cool.
Nice.
had like a vehicle guide and everything.
Love
That's
it.
Um,
Love
cool.
it.
That's
That's the
cool.
most satisfying thing with the RTS
yeah,
games, isn't it?
it,
Yeah.
it gives you it's got a great matrix. Like if you're up against this vehicle, counter it with this one, and same with
Oh.
troop types and everything. It's really like they've gone into such detail. And it has actually I think it's got a pretty decent story mode built into it. So, for example, there's playing as the rebels. There's quite a memorable an early mission where you play essentially a series of missions which lead to you stealing the first X-wing from the Empire, so that you can you can upgrade your ships, because before that you've got really old, antiquated starfighters, and you go and you basically steal the X-wing from the Empire. So it's kind of like a kind of prequel story to the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope. There is also like an expansion where it came out a bit later in 2006, and I have played a little bit of it, where you can actually play as the third faction, which is like the criminal underworld, and their strategy is a bit different from both the rebels and the Empire, whereas they can like bribe their way through the galaxy, and like it's called they're called like the Force of Corruption, and their strategy is like quite different to say the rebels or the Empire, where it's more military based. So that's a bit of fun. I still, being an old school Star Wars fan, it's doing the kind of rebel versus Empire strategy campaigns is probably the most fun part of the game. But yeah, the expansion offers a little bit of another layer to it if you're so inclined. So I highly recommend that. And I've got it on my Steam library now, so I do plan to fire it up to celebrate May the 4th with a bit of Star Wars gameplay later today.
That's brilliant, Johnny. It's interesting that you picked this, because the RTS genre is it's almost just gone under or disappeared. Like there was definitely an era for it in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, and this kind of looks like it fits in that mold of like Command and Conquer,
StarCraft, Warcraft, all of them.
StarCraft, Warcraft, all those kind of games. And that genre is just not as popular these days. Like a lot of the stuff is like first-person narrative. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe it's the move from PC to console gaming, or I'm not sure what it is. But my question for you around this is this like the latest and greatest RTS for Star Wars players that you can play, even though it's from back then? And is it still worth playing today? Like, if you can accept those graphics, which I still think are kind of cool in its own way. Like, is that something you can go back and play today and still enjoy?
I'm not actually sure, because I probably dropped off my PC gaming a bit in the last sort of 10 years or so. But this, I actually struggled a bit to pick this one. I have another favorite from the 90s. It's called Star Wars Rebellion, but I enjoy this much more because it's got much smoother, much far improved graphics, being from the mid 2000s as opposed to the late 90s, and it's got much smoother gameplay and more varied gameplay. So there could be much in the modern era. There could be far superior RTS games with the Star Wars subgenre, but I've sort of dropped off my PC gaming, so I'm not sure about that. But this is definitely the last and the Star Wars RTS game that I most recently enjoyed.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's cool. Nice little gem there. All right, on to me. So I actually recently picked up. So I've played a little bit of Star Wars in the early gaming years, so I've got a pick for that later on. But one that I wanted to start with was probably one of the more modern ones that I picked up recently on sale, $15. It's Star Wars Battlefront 2. So,
nice.
Yeah,
Big pick.
I don't know if you guys have played or not, but it's the first time I'd played that quite recently. And I was trying to pick between games because there's just so many great games out there. I was like, I really wanted that quintessential Star Wars kind of huge battle experience, and I like first-person shooters. So when I saw the trailers for this, I was like, oh, I got to get this. So I've played maybe 10 of the different battles, and I'm about a third to halfway through the single player story. And this game is just absolutely excellent. Like, I do think for Star Wars fans, this is like the Star Wars experience, the whole Battlefield experience come to life, like come true. I was doing a bit of reading into it, and apparently it was quite buggy when it came out back in 2017. There was some, like that's when all the like online payment stuff was going on, and it just, really drained the whole vibe of that game. And even though it's a 2017 game, like I've got this on my Xbox Series X now, it still looks fantastic. Like it runs beautifully. It has like really great particle effects. It's got all the sounds you expect from your Star Wars experience. It's kind of like, I really do feel like it's your quintessential Star Wars experience if you really want to get into the game. So I personally don't play multiplayer games, but this is technically like a multiplayer game with a single player component. But there is so much single player content here that it's crazy. So you can pick, your numerous planets ranging from like Jakku to Bespin to Hoth. And then you can pick the setup of how the battle will unfold. And it will be like, the stormtroopers on one side and the rebels on another. Or there's droids, on one side and the Republic on another. There's fantastic vehicles that you can pick up in the game, like walkers. And then another, maybe it was the walker you were talking about, Johnny. It's like a smaller ATST with a stormtrooper on there. Because I haven't seen some of these things. I was like, what's going on here? This is kind of cool. And it just flows really well. Like the action's really intense. The games have a really good kind of like, you set the length, but you can pick up and play around and be like, that's awesome. Now I want to go like defend Hoth, like against the Empire. And then you're like, now I want to go to Tatooine and do this. And it's really great. The actual gun mechanics feel really good. And so with this game, your character only has one gun, which I was kind of like, oh, hang on, where's my like scrolling mouse wheel of Quake guns that I'm used to, But it's cool. Like it still felt really cool. And I got a good laugh out of watching like some of the hero characters like Han Solo and Leia throw like this wimpy left hook, and it knocks people down like in one hit. And I'm just like, I'm just going to run around punching people with these characters. And then the coolest thing is like when you start like racking up kills, and again, it's like it is a multiplayer game, but as a single player gamer, I really got into it. You upgrade to a hero. You can then choose like Chewbacca, or you can choose like Luke Skywalker and go nuts with your lightsaber, which is just the best. You're just like wrecking everything up. Pat, I can see you itching to say something here. Have you played Star Wars Battlefront 2? Do you know what this game is?
I have. I've played Battlefront 2, and I'm kind of glad that you said nice things about it, because I held off on playing this for so long, only because when it first came out, it was so infamous in that I think something to do with like loot boxes and microtransactions.
Yeah, loot boxes, that's what it was. Yeah. And then some bugs in the game, so people were just like, nah, it's trash. Yeah.
And so it was infamous in that I think someone from EA actually responded to it being so like savaged, and then their response on Reddit was just so terrible that it's actually the most downvoted response in the history of the site.
Oh wow.
Which is crazy if you think about it.
And people hated on EA at that time too, in general, about a lot of stuff. So that's probably what came into the mix.
Exactly. So, but it is pretty fun, and everything is like you said. Like if you're a Star Wars fan and you don't really care about like the microtransactions and the loot boxes and stuff like that, I think the issue with that is I think that if people like it's pay to win. Like which became the problem. Like people, you use real money, they'll probably beat the crap out of you. So
because they get like the hero characters, they just like upgrade to the best gear, and you're like, this isn't fun. Someone's put real money to play my game and beat me at it. Like it sucks.
But it is so fun. Like I had fun playing it. Like look, in my twilight years, I'm not really as competitive as I used to be. So anytime I play these type of games and I die, I just have a laugh. Whereas if I was younger, I'd probably be a lot more toxic. Let's be real. I'd be on the mic. I'd be like,
true gamer.
Yeah, exactly. But like, if you approach it like that, this game is so fun. Like, it is very enjoyable. I love the big set pieces with like the battles and everything like that. So yeah, and just having the one gun really just limits your choice and just forces you to just go for it.
Yeah, it does. And like the set pieces, like again, what you're saying is just the I don't know, it's like the best part of it. Like,
Yeah.
so there's also, what I didn't mention is there's a single player campaign where these set pieces come into their own. And like, just for example, one of them, you might be flying in a squad of X-Wings and you're shooting these satellites that are above a planet that are tearing the planet to shreds. But also in that same mission, you're on the planet then doing like the ground troop assault stuff. And these these satellites are just shooting down these giant lasers around you, blowing up
So cool.
AT-ATs. And you're just like, whoa, this is like
so
like the
cool.
on Star Wars like epic scale battle. It feels really fantastic. And like it's on sale. It's just one of those games where I think holds its value. And if you're looking for a good game and you don't want to spend a lot of money and you want that Star Wars experience, like check it out. Like, yeah, for someone who's fresh to it, and like Pat said, someone who's aware of the other stuff, it's definitely a really cool game to get into.
It's very cool.
All right, we are on to our second round of picks. But before we do need to mention what our favorite Star Wars thing is. So I am going to throw... Who am I throwing to first, boys? You're both fans. Does anyone want to put their hand up to say what their favorite Star Wars thing is? It can be a phaser, it can be Spock. No.
Mine's gonna be quick.
What? Isn't it the same? No.
I can see Johnny getting angry. Come on, John. Go easy. I'll go first because it's nice and easy. It's gonna be the lightsabers, guys. That's the quintessential Star Wars. Like, you think of Star Wars, you think of lightsabers, and as a kid, and even now, I'm obsessed with swords. So I always think swords are cool. And what is cooler than a freaking weapon that can cut through anything and is also built by you in universe, of course, where you hunt for your own crystal that powers it, and then the crystal changes to whatever color you are most naturally attuned to. So it's like really super personalized to you. It, like I said, cut through anything. There's a myth around it, even in universe, that only certain people can use it, and it's just so cool.
Super cool, man. Nah, totally with you there. Samuel L. Jackson got your little purple lightsaber snuck into that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
What to you?
Just because he wanted it. Yeah,
just because he wanted it.
The actor said, "That's what I want," and so they built up a whole in-universe story for it. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's amazing. Johnny, how about you? What's your favorite Star Wars thing?
I'm going to throw everyone a bit of a curveball because I know it's a video game podcast, but my actual favorite Star Wars thing is the Star Wars books from the early 90s.
Remember those?
Hear me out.
Nice.
So there was a period. It's not like now where you have new Star Wars content every 5 minutes, basically. There was a period. So Return of the Jedi released in the early 80s, and there was probably a period of close to 10 years there wasn't much Star Wars content around. And then suddenly in the early 90s, Timothy Zahn put out these books called the Heir to the Empire trilogy, and they basically continued the story after Return of the Jedi. So this was huge back in the day because there wasn't really any other Star Wars content around for a very long time until George Lucas came back to do the prequels, of course, which was in the sort of late 90s and early 2000s. But for a time, it was these Timothy Zahn novels that kind of kept us Star Wars fans going during what was quite a long kind of dry spell in terms of Star Wars content. And a lot of this stuff is now finding its way back into the new Star Wars content. They're pulling characters and storylines into the modern Star Wars content. So that's still my favorite Star Wars thing because it was so absorbing back in the day.
That's so
nice.
Cool.
Very cool. I'd forgotten about those books until you mentioned them. I remember seeing them on the shelves and going, they've got kids now, and it's like, oh, there's it was cool. There was a continuation because there was a big break between the movies, and I was like, why are there not more Star Wars movies? These are fantastic movies. Very cool, Johnny. Mine is probably the scene in the third movie, which is Return of the Jedi, not the new third movie or the middle third. Kind of lost with all that. I don't know if that's 6 or 3 or 1/3, but it's one of those. It's Luke Skywalker in his prime. I love how that movie, like the first third, is centered around like Jabba's palace, Return to Tatooine, and you see Luke Skywalker is finally like a fully formed Jedi. He's got a cool new green lightsaber, and he gets captured like everyone seems to do. Look, if this is spoiling it for you, you shouldn't be watching this podcast, people. So he gets captured. They all get captured. And then he's just like, R2. And I was like, throw me my lightsaber, like you said, Pat. And it's time to shine. My boy goes wild. He's just like, all right, I'm going to fix this shit. And he just like takes on the entire group of mercenaries. Cleans up big time. It's just one of the coolest scenes, how it becomes this chaotic mess of lasers and the lightsaber. Luke Skywalker comes in, saves the day, absolutely destroys everyone. It's just, there are so many great set piece scenes and memorable scenes from all the series, but that one for me was like, because you do see like a Luke Skywalker who kind of grows in his like Force abilities, and it's like he's in his prime, man. Like he's not stressed. It's like, capture me, not a problem.
Yeah.
Whips out old green, and away he goes. So that's my favorite. Old green, isn't that what they call it?
Old green.
Isn't that what they call the phasers in that? All right, on to the next game. So, Pat, we're on to your second pick. Still a little bit retro, but recently had a remaster that's come back.
That is correct.
To all the modern consoles and PC included. I'm going to pull some footage up for it now, but what is this that we are looking at?
Okay, so the people are probably a lot more familiar with this one because I believe this is one of the more popular Star Wars games. But this is Knights of the Old Republic, or as is affectionately known, KOTOR. So this is a fantastic game, just to start off with, and it is from 2003. But as John said, recently had a remaster, or there is a remake coming out for it, I believe, but it also was released on iOS, Android, and the Switch in like 2019.
Yeah, it was pretty recently. It's like 3 years ago, like they started bringing back some of the Star Wars games, maybe a little bit longer. So a remake is definitely announced for it, just for the modern gen consoles. There you go, there's the Switch right there. But I don't even know where to start with this game. So it is by BioWare. If you have ever played any of the BioWare games like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, you can see that those games have the classic BioWare touch. So you can almost say that the KOTOR is a distant relation or an ancestor of Dragon Age or Mass Effect, because very deep in the BioWare system. It is an RPG, but kind of a different RPG in that it's sort of turn-based, but you can pause any time in terms of the combat, which is, again, if you played Mass Effect, you'll know all about that, because pause anytime, do your business. You pause for your like powers or something, don't you? And then assign targets, and then you're back into it. It plays out.
Or you can just let it play autonomously. So it's kind of turn-based, but it all happens in real time, if that makes sense. You choose a class, so you create your own character. You choose a class in the beginning. There's only 3 available. I think one of them is like scout, soldier. I forget the other one, like some type of thief. Like I think it's called scoundrel maybe. But and then you play as that for maybe the first part. I don't even want to say the first part, just for the first little bit of the game. But as everyone wants to, without spoiling this story, because I feel like this is a game everyone should play. You will obviously get chosen. You're the chosen one, kind of thing. You get picked to become a Jedi, and then there's different Jedi subclasses that you can also choose to be. So again, keeping in line with BioWare games, you got the whole light side, dark side. So it's like your factions. So in Mass Effect, you could be your Paragon or Renegade, depending on your actions. If you're a good person, you do good things. You're obviously going to lean towards more the light side. Dialogue will be more light side. If you're an asshole, you be a Sith Lord, I guess.
That was kind of like the cool thing about the game, though, at the time, wasn't it? Because it was like, this game is going to let you do that. Like Mass Effect lets you do that to some extent. This game was like, no, you can go like full the dark side.
And your choices in dialogue have repercussions later on in the game. So I think this is one of the first games to have that as well. Where the choices you make actually has an effect on your gameplay. You get your ragtag group of heroes as you progress through the game, and you get a little party going. You can control them as well if you want, or you could just let them do their own thing. But it is very fun. The story is fantastic. I believe the what do you call it? The legend of the story comes from LucasArts approaching, I think it was BioWare or whoever it was that developed it.
Yeah, BioWare.
Yeah, they just said, "Hey, do you want to do a game where the story is set somewhere in between Attack of the Clones or 4,000 years before everything?" And I think BioWare or whoever just said, "Yeah, cool, we'll do it 4,000 years before." Obviously, that opens up the story a lot more, and you're not constrained to the current mythos, I guess, or the current progress of the story. So they've done a ton with the world building. You can visit a ton of different planets that you're already familiar with, like Tatooine, Dantooine, go on the ships and things like this. But beyond that, very, very cool. As you can see, the gameplay there, it's very fun for anybody that is even thinking about being a fan of Star Wars. This is a must pick.
Must buy. Pat, my question for you is kind of like what I had for Johnny, like with Empire at War. This game is like, I think it was released on the PC and Xbox originally.
Yep.
And it's interesting with modern day remasters where there's almost like a level of a game that can be remastered and it still looks great. So like Paper Mario is coming out. It was on the GameCube and there's an art style that holds up. And then we've seen games on the Xbox 360, PS3 area, like Last of Us come back and it's like, yeah, it looks good as a remaster or remake. This game is like, you can see it's older textures. It doesn't have complex character models. It's got the text up the top when you're, when you're watching it. Is this I guess what I'm getting at, is this a game that if you're a Star Wars fan and you're like, gee, there's so many games I haven't seen or played this one, but I'm into the adventures, can you still enjoy it? Like, can you still enjoy it based on its current graphical fidelity and the way it plays as a game overall?
I reckon absolutely yes. And I don't know if that's me being biased, but you most definitely can. And you have no excuses because it's out on Android and iOS as well. So get it on your phone and start playing it. It's highly recommended. I reckon it holds up. And you would probably play this for the story anyway. And if you're if you're a Star Wars fan, you'd probably play this for the story. And so just based on that, I reckon it holds up.
Nice. And there's a sequel too, apparently. I didn't even know that.
Yes.
There's like the Sith
Lords. There's like three or four.
No. Are you serious? Whoa.
Yeah. Knights of the Old Republic. Oh, I should probably also mention it is a MMO. So it's an MMORPG, simply because it's so popular. But the Knights of the Old Republic itself, I believe, is an actual franchise in and of itself. So there's a ton of games in that series, or at least in that sort of I guess in that, I don't know what you call it, sub series.
Yeah.
So there's multiple sequels to this game.
Oh wow. I'm just waiting for Johnny to pull up some books and be like, "Here we go, Knights of the
No, I know people do sure love their Jedi/Sith simulator games. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, big time. All right, well, look, we might go to me next because we're going to finish strong with Johnny with his last pick, which is something we'll come to soon. It's a bit of a surprise. It's something that's quite good. We're going to go next. We're going to go back a little bit retro again. There's just there are a lot of really good modern Star Wars games, and we haven't mentioned your favorite game, People of Perth and Beyond. Don't worry, because we can have a May the 4th special next year. We'll actually do a full segment on Star Wars Pod Racer on the Nintendo 64. Whatever you want, we'll do it. It's coming. But this is my next pick. This is
nice.
This is Star Wars. Now, there are 3 games on the Super Nintendo, and my favorite pick is Return of the Jedi, but I couldn't get footage for it, so this is the first one. Spock and the Klingons or something. I can't remember the name. Something like that.
Oh, God.
Is that a Klingon? I think it was. All right. So, look, all jokes aside, there were 3 absolute banger Star Wars games on the Super Nintendo. They're real standout games because I guess the Super Nintendo is considered one of the prime systems where it had the Nintendo games, but it also had the best of the best third-party games in many ways. Like you had NBA Jam and you had your Mortal Kombats and all that stuff. But the 3 Star Wars games, which are standout games in particular, they're generally side-scrollers. So you would choose one of your characters at the start. You can choose like a bounty hunter version of Leia, for example, in Return of the Jedi. Very cool. Equipped with thermal detonators and her it's like a spear thing that's kind of cool. And I don't know if you guys have seen this game before, but so it's like a side scroller moving left to the right, get to the end of the level, pick up power-ups. But then it's also got diverse kind of levels mixed in. So in Return of the Jedi, there's a level where you play as a Millennium Falcon and you're flying across the... What's the big one? The Death Star. The Death Star.
Oh my god! I don't know if you were joking. I don't know if you were joking.
Sort of like, is it a Romulan? I'm not really sure.
Oh god!
It's just the Death Star. Anyway, and you're doing the Millennium Falcon. It's really cool. But then there's another level, like you're flying around, you're shooting TIE fighters. But then there's another level where you're just taking control of the turret in the Millennium Falcon. And shooting down TIE fighters separately. So it's so cool how they've created lots of, and there you can see like the land speeder on Tatooine. So there's lots of different levels and like the gameplay variety for a Super Nintendo system. Like a system of that era is incredible, and the sounds are really good too. So like the classic, pew pew stuff and the humming of the lightsabers sounded really good. Again, it was kind of like a true like gamer fan, like fantasy come to life, because it's like, oh, you've watched the Star Wars movies, or you might not have in Pat's case, where you've played it on the original Famicom, but then come back to the games. And I saw a Scorpion in there, so maybe that's another Darth Vader. But did you see that's Darth Vader sneaking in like he does? It's they're just like a fantastic collection of 3 games. And again, my favorite's the third one, simply because it's based in Jabba's palace, and the level around that is very, very cool. And when you play as Luke Skywalker, when you jump, you just do this lightsaber flip, which makes you nigh invincible. My one gripe with these games, and that third game, is that they're almost like bullet hell shooters. So, with side-scroller beat-em-ups, it's meant to be paced. Like, you're meant to take in a bit of the surroundings, fight a couple of, like, baddies, and then move on. It's not quite a beat-em-up, but it's 2D platformer, but it's the same kind of gist. These games are just like bullet hells. They throw everything, all the Jawas, all the Wookiees, all the all the characters, they all go at you, like, and you just kind of like, calm down. Like, I just want to get through the game. Like, the first level in Return of the Jedi is literally jumping on not invisible, but floating rocks in the sky. It's meant to be Tatooine. And it's really hard. Like, and this was an era where you don't just get to pick your missions like you do in Battlefront 2 or whatever. This is like an era where you play the game and you die or you lose your lives. You're back at the start of the cartridge. So many gamers like me would only get to like level 3 or 4, lose to like whatever awful boss there is there that looked cool but was incredibly unfair, and then you'd be stuck playing the earlier levels, classic SNES style, like whatever that is, like, So have you guys seen these games, or have you heard of the old classic Star Wars SNES games at all?
I've only seen footage of these games.
Yeah.
Well, I remember these games primarily because of the Nintendo Power magazine, that each of them were profiled in detail. And those images from Nintendo Power are just burnt onto my brain. So I was really fascinated to hear your answer, John, about why Jedi was your favorite, but obviously kind of the synergy with your favorite scene in Star Wars, that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that was it. And all 3 games are quality. And my dream would be, we saw the Super Nintendo Mini be released with a lot of the Nintendo-specific properties. Release a third-party Super Nintendo Mini, bring it out with NBA Jam and your Street Fighters and Mortal Kombat. Well, I think Street Fighter was another one, but bring it out with the stuff that got left off the table. There's so many quality games out there.
Get all those sweet licenses. All those sweet licenses.
Pay the money, we'll pay. Yeah, exactly that. All right, so we're on to our final pick, and this one is over to Johnny, who I don't know who the bigger fan is, but Johnny, you're going to wrap us up with our final game for today. This is tell us what this is.
Had to do it because back in the 90s, mid to late 90s, I was all about what this has got to be, what I like to call Wolfenstein in space. So it's a first-person shooter that I was playing back on the PC in the day. It's recently got a remaster, and I over the last couple of days I've been playing this on my Switch, and it's been great fun to be mowing down stormtroopers and all the different enemies you come across in this game, all the different like droids and members of the criminal underworld you come across. Yes, you even get to fight
what was that?
A crate dragon with your bare hands, which is great. Yeah, so there's a level. There's such a variety of levels. So you start off with some pretty straightforward You go into a Imperial base and you got to mow down stormtroopers and other Imperial troop types. But as the game progresses, you start to get a real variety of levels and scenarios, and like you're dropped into, you get captured by Jabba the Hutt's. Sorry, spoilers
Jabba.
for a game that's from the 90s. You get captured by
Jabba
Jabba the
again.
Hutt, and
Jabba.
Irresponsible
yeah.
behavior,
So
Jabba.
you're not playing as a character from the movies. This is a new character called Kyle Katarn, who's basically like a rebel infiltrator mercenary, and he's been sent on this mission to basically destroy the Empire's latest super weapon, which is called the Dark Trooper. But at one point, you are captured by Jabba the Hutt, and you have to escape his ship, and you've basically been fed to the equivalent of a Star Wars line. You've been fed to a crate dragon, and you've got to fight that crate dragon with your bare hands because all your gear's been taken away, which is a really challenging level, but also a lot of fun to work your way through and fight the Gamorrean guards, who are the big pig guys with the battle axes.
Nice, remember them.
I've been enjoying, and there's all the variety of different weapon types as you progress through the game. You start with your basically a pea shooter, but as you go through the game, you pick up a variety of different weapons, including your thermal detonators, mines, and things, which come really important when you come to fighting the namesakes of the game, the Dark Troopers, because you need a bit of strategy to beat them. Just taking them straight on in a gunfight is going to end up badly. So you want to place your mines and try and get them to run across all the mines to take damage and that kind of thing. I will say, if you guys ever, as a bit of an aside, if you guys ever do a part 2 of your most frustrating video game levels, this game does have one of them. The third level in this game is this awful puzzle level where you have to trudge around a sewer trying to unlock gates to get to your objectives, and you're constantly being eaten alive by the sewer monsters from the first Star Wars movies, the Diemogers.
Is that the kind of
it's one of the most frustrating video game levels. But once you the one-eyed creature,
that one, the snaky thing. I remember that. It's like,
they pop out of the sewer. Yeah. So there's a very frustrating third level of this game, but other than that, it's so much fun. And there's levels where you just you arrive in an area and it's just packed with stormtroopers, and you're just mowing through them with whatever weapon you're equipped with at the time. I highly recommend this one to the viewers of Perth and beyond. It's a lot of fun. Just started playing it through on the Switch. Haven't quite sucked myself up yet to take on that third level, so I've only played through the first 2 levels in the last couple of days. But I will do it because the latter stages of the game are a lot of fun. So this is a bit of a favourite of mine from back in the day, and now found a new lease of life on modern consoles.
Very cool, Johnny. Very cool. Pat, I do want to ask you, have you played this game, or having seen this game now, like, does it appeal to you? Because it's not like the whole lightsaber action. It's not like deep RPG, but it's still the Star Wars universe, universe, but with like the Doom kind of Duke Nukem vibe to it. Is this something you've been to?
I haven't seen this game before, actually, and I love seeing the going from the original to remaster. It just makes it so sharp. But I am a fan of Wolfenstein and Doom and Quake and all those games like this. So just even watching how like the levels are made on this one, it's definitely very reminiscent. And I did not know that the protagonist here was Kyle Katarn. So Kyle Katarn is the protagonist of a lot of the Star Wars games, including some of ones I like that we didn't talk about today, like Jedi Outcast and things like that. So he's a very cool guy, and I like him. So this game immediately gets plus points for that, using him. But this looks really fun. Does it have co-op or multiplayer, Johnny? It's got co-op?
I'm familiar with it as a one-player first-person shooter. I'm not sure if it's ever had a co-op mode added. One thing I did neglect to mention is how satisfying the hearing those classic Star Wars sound effects were when I booted it up the other day, and I think I spent like 5 minutes just playing with the doors to hear that swooshing sound that the Star Wars video games, Star Wars doors make, and all those blaster sounds and all those classic sound effects. So been brought to life with such love and attention in this remaster.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's funny you mention that, because even like when you play the old Doom games, you remember the door opening sound very distinctly, and it is like an overlay of that stuff too. So no, that's very cool. Love it, Johnny. Look, we were gonna spend 10 minutes more going on about how much we love the Mandalorian, but we can't, people of Perth and Beyond, because we've run out of time. So that is all from us for today. We might just have to do that second episode and spend a good 35 minutes on the pod racer game on the N64, or not. Maybe we'll talk about some Star Trek, who knows. Guys, thanks so much for joining me today. Did you have anything else you wanted to add for the people of Perth and Beyond? Any final shout-out games or anything you'd like to say? Pat, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, so for the one person that's left watching us after all those Star Trek jokes, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate your support. Glad you stuck with us. But no, there's so many Star Wars games out there, guys. You know, they're really different genres and everything like that. There's just something for everyone. So if you're a fan of the series or the movies or just the whole thing as a whole, definitely pick one up.
Nice. And Johnny, any words from you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. That Star Wars and video games are two things that just go so well together, and there's definitely scope for a part 2 from PGC. So if your favorite Star Wars video game wasn't mentioned, fear not. I think you could hear from us again on this theme. That's for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, it might just have to happen. I mean, there are the Jedi Fallen Order games. There's the Lego Star Wars games. Yeah. There's a new one coming out called Star Wars Hunters, which is 4 versus 4 on the Switch and iOS. It's coming out soon. So there's so many games, Jedi Knight Academy games. There's a lot out there. So maybe a part 2 will be coming for the people in Perth and beyond. But in terms of the Perth Gaming Crew, that is all we have for today. May the 4th be with you. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend. See you later.